Welcome to District 4, and I am Councilmember Cleta Winslow. And today I'm being joined by 4 guests, and we're going to talk about choice neighborhoods. And under the Choice Neighborhood Program, which is part of the Atlanta Housing Development Authority new development under HUD, there are 3 neighborhoods. It's Vine City, it's Ashview Heights, and it's the Atlanta University Center neighborhoods. But we're also going to throw one other neighborhood in, and that's the Mosley Park community. So today we're going to talk to Atlanta Housing Authority members. We're going to talk to their affiliates, Integral Development, who are doing some development projects on Housing Authority property. And then we also have 2 wonderful guests who are going to talk about the Booker T. Washington community, which is around Booker T. Washington High School, and also Mosley Park. So I want to start out first with James Talley. And Mr. Talley, give us your title at the Atlanta Housing Authority.
Thank you very much. I'm the Senior Project Manager in the Real Estate Development and Acquisitions Group at the Atlanta Housing Authority, where I've been for, almost 10 years now.
Long time.
Long time. Time flies.
Okay.
It's been a lot of fun.
All right. And we're also joined by Eamon Martin, and Eamon is with Integral, and give us your title.
Okay, I am a Senior Development Director in our Community Development Division of Integral Development, LLC, and we are the Atlanta Housing Authority's development partner for the redevelopment of the former University Homes public housing site, which has been rebranded as Scholars Landing.
Okay, and why don't I start out with you, Mr. Talley, because I want the people to really know a little bit more about Choice Neighborhoods. I know that they were funded last year.
Yes.
And I want to find out, and let's tell the people what the mission of Choice Neighborhoods is.
Well, to go back to the beginning, Choice Neighborhoods is the next iteration of the Old Hope 6 program, which is a HUD initiative. The Old Hope 6 program focused primarily on the public housing site and the footprint of the housing site. Whereas the new program, Choice Neighborhoods, focuses not just on the former public housing site, but a defined boundary. And for us, as you said earlier, is Vine City, Atlanta University Center neighborhood, and Ashview Heights. And inside of that, University Homes, which is now, as Eamon said, rebranded as Scholars Landing, that is our target neighborhood. The focus is on people, housing, and neighborhood. Atlanta Housing Authority was the lead applicant, and of course the City of Atlanta was our co-applicant. So we're really excited with that partnership, and it proved to be quite successful.
Right. Now I know I went to a meeting, I think it was sometime last year.
Yes.
In this building, in the Woodruff Library.
Yes, ma'am.
And there were a number of other partners.
Yes.
Who are some of those other partners other than the city?
Some of our other partners include Invest Atlanta, Atlanta Workforce Development, Families First, Quest, Morehouse School of Medicine, and the other Atlanta University Center consortium schools.
Okay.
And Greater Atlanta United Way, as well as APS.
Okay. So there were some dollars that were awarded to Atlanta Housing Authority, and what was the amount of those dollars?
The Choice Neighborhoods grant is for $30 million, is for a 5-year period. Now, what that $30 million did, in effect, was leverage another, at the time of award, $375 million in additional investment, either through private or public sources, through the city, Invest Atlanta, philanthropy, and some others. And so it shows what this area represents, the potential, and we understand while the grant's for only 5 years, this is more of a long-term project. And we're looking to build sustainability inside this community. And we feel that with the transformation plan that we put together, that we're there.
Okay, because even though there isn't anybody here today on the stage,
yes,
from Vine City, I mean the Arthur Blank Foundation, they are heavily involved in the Vine City English Avenue redevelopment.
That is correct.
Right.
And that's where there is some overlap with Vine City. Vine City is also part of the West Side TAD. But when we looked south of Martin Luther King, we saw that there was not a lot going on in this area. And so we saw that this was an opportunity for Choice Neighborhoods to bridge that gap between the TAD and also what we felt needed to happen in the Atlanta University Center neighborhood as well as Asheview Heights.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about some of the development that has already taken place, Mr. Martin, and some future development. Now, we've got some senior housing. Why don't you talk about Scholars Landing and the Oasis?
Yes, ma'am, as well as the veranda. So as
yes.
James had mentioned earlier, a critical component to the Choice Neighborhood grant is the housing piece. And as the development part of the Atlanta Housing Authority, Integral is the private partner in this public-private partnership to develop the housing piece or redevelopment around within the University Homes former footprint. So phase one of that development we completed in 2013, which was 100 units of affordable independent senior housing. And what that independent senior housing, it's apartments for seniors. So all the amenities you'd see in a market rate senior elderly community restricted to seniors 62 years or older who are at or below a 60% area median income. So this is housing that's affordable to seniors who are on restricted incomes. And you'll see all the amenities you see in elderly market rate apartments, exercise room, business center. It's a 100 units, mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. And then also as we strive to do sustainable development, we actually achieved LEED Silver certification for that development, completed in 2013, an extremely popular community with a huge waiting list. The second phase of redevelopment is we saw one of the things Integral has seen is we've developed probably over 2,000 units of independent senior housing, affordable senior housing, as our seniors age in place on restricted incomes, and they get to a point where they need more services, meaning cooking becomes harder, assistance with medication, assistance with getting dressed. And so we've been working for years to develop a affordable kind of senior project that provides services for the activities of daily living. And so the Oasis at Scholars Landing, it was phase 2, which was actually the state of Georgia's first affordable senior housing community of its type, financed with low-income housing tax credits. So that is financed as the veranda with low-income housing tax credits, which Integral and the Housing Authority have used to syndicate and bring in private equity as well as private debt to develop the community. So the Oasis at Scholars Lane is actually Integral and the Housing Authority's first senior community of its kind. So it's licensed as a personal care home with a full commercial kitchen, provides meals for the seniors, services, medication assistance, assistance with getting dressed, bathing, all of the services that the seniors age in place and can't afford the market rate assisted living communities can now afford to stay in their community and to live in a residential environment.
Well, I know the product that you put on the ground is great because I've worked with other developers to try to get other senior developments in other parts of the district, and they always get knocked out by AHA. We'll be right back with more from District 4.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Call this free government program for the option that's right for you.
Welcome back to District 4. And Mr. Martin, I have a couple of other questions. I'd like to talk about the future development. And the development that we're talking about is right on Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard. And for those people who may not be familiar with the new name, that's Fair Street. And for some of the older Atlantans, we used to call that Fair Street Bottom. So it's right in the heart of the Atlanta University student area. And but tell us about the new development that's coming.
Absolutely. So we covered the senior development, the 2 senior phases. So the next 2 phases of residential at Scholars Landing will be multifamily development. So they'll be developed in 2 phases, and the brand name for the multifamily will be Ashley Scholars Landing. So there'll be an Ashley Scholars Landing 1, which will be approximately 175 units of multifamily apartments, and these are going to be mixed income. So you have approximately 40% of the units is affordable, the balance 60% market rate, And again, these will be built to Class A apartment standards, and you'll see all the amenities in this Ashley phase that you see in the apartments that are being built around the city of Atlanta today. Swimming pool, exercise room, fitness center, a mix of studio.
It's going to have a swimming pool.
We're hoping so.
Okay.
We're working on it.
That's
a mix
new.
of studios, 1s, 2s, and 3 bedrooms, and a few 4 bedrooms in phase 2. So Ashley Scholars Landing 2 will be approximately 215 units of multifamily apartments, again with similar amenities and some neighborhood, very small amount of street level retail in that phase. Also, the former Roosevelt Hall building, which was the one building that was preserved and from the University Homes footprint, which is about 16,000 square foot building, will be renovated to provide retail as well as some community space and office space on the 2nd floor.
That's a wonderful historic building. What is it, 2 or 3 stories?
2 stories, 2-story building right on Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard. And then the last thing, which is very important and oftentimes is sometimes I believe overlooked, is the Housing Authority and their redevelopment projects and partnerships with Integral and their other development partners really go in to improve the infrastructure, the public spaces. Mm-hmm. So as you'll see, we've already completed 3 phases of streetscape improvements. So the Lachey Street, John Hope, and Elm Street and Parsons Streets have been renovated or improved to make for a more pedestrian, safe, and friendly environment. And so the future phases of public improvements will improve Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard and the streets to the south of that.
The streets have been paved. You've got the new Victorian lighting that's out there.
On some of the streets.
On some of the streets.
North of Atlanta Student Movement.
Right, which is wonderful. You know, I want to let people know,
Absolutely.
you know, you added in some character, you know, into the community, and that's great.
Yes, and kudos really go to the Housing Authority. That's
Right.
without the Choice Neighborhood Grant, they move forward to fund these street improvements. You know, we were doing it street at the time,
Right.
but actually to improve and make for a much safer, pedestrian-friendly
But
environment.
it really looks wonderful.
And Councilmember Winslow, if I could just, there are 2 other key components to this. The first is that there will be a homeownership component that will come in. 33 units are planned currently. It will add additional stability, we hope, to the community. And then secondly, we're also offering former University Homes residents the opportunity to come back to the revitalized community.
That's wonderful. That's
Absolutely.
wonderful. And that home ownership piece was going to help me transition to my other guests, to Mr. Coleman and also Mr. Cannon, because when I first came to, it was then Atlanta University School of Social Work. That's where I graduated from. We had the faculty that lived right in the community where we went to school. So we used to visit our advisors on Ozone Street and on some other streets, and the Dr. Tate, Horace Tate, Horace Ward, excuse me, that just passed away. He lived right in the Atlanta University Center neighborhood. So that home ownership piece, maybe that's going to get some of the faculty back into close proximity to where they work. So let's kind of transition that, because both of you have lived in your communities, in the Booker T. Washington community and the Mosley Park community, forever, not forever, but forever.
Yeah.
But Morocco Coleman, you're a veteran. You've done a lot of work with the Veterans Administration, with the state under the Labor Department. You've written a book. So I want you to talk a little bit about that. But I also want you to talk about your grandfather, and most people don't know this. That's why I wanted to have you on the show. Driving Miss Daisy. That was a true story, and your grandfather was the chauffeur in Driving Miss Daisy. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Well, my grandfather lived on right off of Ashby Street in the Chenault Apartments. But a large percentage of his time was spent at my house at Stafford Street, a block up from Burbank. And I've been there since I was 6 years old. And my grandfather was the actual chauffeur for the Urey family. And the Ureys lived out by the governor's mansion out around Tuxedo Road. And everything that you saw in the movie and the play was true, except in the movie and play, my grandfather had a daughter and a granddaughter. In reality, he had my father, and my father had me.
Okay.
That was the only major difference that I was able to pick up in those two entities. And my grandfather was very active in the community. He would ride in the Cadillac from Driving Miss Daisy through the neighborhood to the senior citizens like himself, and pick up their newspapers and take the newspapers to the paper house.
Okay.
And he was very gregarious, outgoing personality, and he was just a wonderful individual.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I wanted you to tell that story because when you're very low key. So when you told me about 5 years ago, I said I got to figure out some kind of way to let people know that it was a real story, and that a lot of people in the inner city neighborhoods that we live in have I'll use the word matriculate since we're in the graduation period, have moved up and have done well for themselves. And I know Marvin Arrington used to live on Chickamauga Avenue. Hank Aaron, he used to live in the neighborhood. I don't know how many other celebrities lived in the neighborhood. I know the Scott.
The Scott family, yeah. Lana Daily World.
Yeah, Alley Pat.
Alley Pat.
That passed away not too long ago. He was on WAOK. Had his own show. He and Jose had their own TV show. He lived there. So, just a lot of great people that lived in those communities.
And the families of many of these individuals are still there. Also, I'm finding out now that some of my friends that I grew up with, their fathers were Tuskegee Airmen. And at the time, as a kid growing up, that was just such and so's father that was happened to be in the military. And here in later years, I found that once I became a Tuskegee Airman, that many of these individuals were airmen. You have others that were in different phases: Korea, Vietnam, World War II, and many of them are heroes. And so it's just a wealth of family tradition in the Hunter Hills, Mosley Park area, and buttressing up to where Billy is at Booker T. Washington.
And that's a good way to phase into Bill, who I've known since before being on city council. Been a great leader for the neighborhood, and been in Atlanta. I mean, you just go way back. Is it the
Candeline Cosmetics Company. That was founded by my grandfather.
And it was that considered Hunter Street at the time?
Well, yes, but that was the third home, actually. It was founded in the basement of the house that my grandfather had. That was actually built for him by his father. His father, the house that his father lived in is still there on the corner of Palmetto and now Joseph Lowry. There's now a funeral home, Walker Funeral Home. And that was my great-grandfather's house. And he built my grandfather's house as a wedding present at the time. And my grandfather actually stole the idea from my great-grandfather, who was impressed by what Madam C.J. Walker had been doing. And so he started the cosmetic business for black hair care in the basement of that very same house. And as it started taking off, he moved it over on Bell Street, where his father owned the building on Bell Street. That's a 3-story building across from the Bell Street Rib Shack. And so he
off
moved
of Auburn Avenue.
Off of Auburn Avenue.
Okay.
And so he moved that business over there as it began to grow. And then once it got larger, he built a building on what we call Martin Luther King. Now it was Hunter Street then, and moved the business in there on Hunter Street. And so that it grew from there to being the first black business out of Fulton Industrial Park.
And of course, in this area also is, there's been talk about the Beltline. And so the Beltline is they're working on it, it's coming through. I think one of the good things about both of these neighborhoods, really Vine City, the Booker T. Washington, Ashview Heights community, and Mosley Park, is we've got new people that are moving in. I called you, I was all excited about the fact that there's a young lady who's going to be doing a bed and breakfast on Beckwith Street. She lives here, has a son, 5th graduate, so she's a graduate of HBCU school, and she's just all excited about being in the neighborhood and wants to give back and plans on keeping her roots here. And so these are the kind of stories that they need to hear. They need to hear from our seniors in terms of what has happened in the past, and that it's important to really root yourself in the neighborhood, not be a fly-by-nighter, but be here for the long haul. So that's why I really wanted to have this show, so that we could talk about the need for that, so that young people really understand that there's legend here. There's good people that have been here, that have stayed here, not only through the good times, but through the bad times.
Yeah, you remind me of a saying that I have heard a number of times. I'd rather see a sermon than hear one. And the point to that is that the people that you're referring to need to see that story as opposed to hearing it. And that's one of the things that we have some concern about, is we're losing a lot of those historic structures. To see that history. Auburn Avenue still has a lot of buildings that you mentioned before. The Oddfellows building is a good example. The building that I referred to on Bell Street. Seeing those structures, so that it's like going to Egypt and seeing the pyramids. If they weren't there, talking about them and not being able to see them doesn't have the same value. So having Booker T. Washington High School, the first black historic high school in the state of Georgia, and from which so many famous people came from, and having the home of Graham W. Jackson across the street on White House Drive, and who was one of the he was the music director for Booker T. Washington High School. And there are a lot of famous people who, of course, came out of that school, including...
And his connection to the White House, the new White House.
Yeah, Graham Jackson was the favorite musician of President Roosevelt. And the president had polio, and so he and many thought that the Warm Springs in Warm Springs, Georgia, had healing powers. And so he would have a little White House constructed there. That would be his San Clemente of sorts. Or Kenny Bumport. That was where he would go for rest and relaxation, and also to continue work from the White House at the Little White House. But he would be able to bathe in those springs that felt that it would help him medically. But when he went, he would always have Graham Jackson to come and play music for him while he was there. And so they developed a very close relationship. And Graham Jackson was so impressed with that relationship that he had his home redesigned to look like the Little White House in Warm Springs as to say thank you to the president. And the city of Atlanta, Ashby Street, before it was called Ashby Street, it was called A Street. Newcastle was B Street, and White House was C Street. So they began to change those letter name streets to having names, and they started with White House Drive being created from C Street to honor the president and the relationship between Graham Jackson and the president. And there's so many other stories that came from that relationship, and so many of the things that Graham Jackson was able to do he was an ensign in the Navy and had that relationship with the military again, and had so many of his students that became outstanding entertainers over the years, and so many people that came, great people like my best friend, my big brother right here, that a lot of character came from that. But my point earlier was that it's important to make sure Washington High doesn't disappear.
Right.
And it's important for those houses where new development doesn't take it and away
Right.
from the landscape. And having new people come in the area is a good thing, but we have to be real careful with historic structures that we maintain them so that we can tell the stories and point to the sermon and say, let me tell you the sermon, but take a look at it as I tell you.
Right.
Lena Horne also comes to mind, that came from the Hunter Street area. And right now on Facebook, Professor Skip Mason.
Yes.
Skip has a page on Facebook that is phenomenal and fantastic, and it's called The Vanishing Black Atlanta. And it has pictures and of native Atlantans that are of note that we're talking about, and also many of the structures that are no longer in the Hunter Street area and the old Fair Street bottom and the Mosley Park areas. And you can go on and see these pictures and the people that we're talking about from those eras and those times.
Okay, what I want to do, because we have to close out, I want you to give us the title to your book, because you've written a book.
The title of my book is Coming Full Circle. It starts off with my experiences in Vietnam, and after Vietnam I returned to my home Atlanta, and I go on with life, and that's when the real war starts.
Okay. Now we hope you have enjoyed this program today, and if you're interested in perhaps touring some of these neighborhoods, there's going to be a tour coming up. I'll be doing a tour. It's a home ownership tour. We have down payment assistance. We only accept those people who want to purchase a home in the city of Atlanta, but we do have help for you. You can call my number, and it is 404-330-6047. Okay, why don't you tell me, Mr. Talley, how we can get in touch with you, how the audience can get in touch with you if they want some more information about the Atlanta Housing Authority and Choice Neighborhoods.
Specifically for Choice Neighborhoods, for additional information, that's cnatlanta.org. And for me, my email address is james.talley, Talley, @atlantahousing.org.
Okay, all right. Mr. Martin?
Yes. You can learn more about Integral and what we do at our website at www.integral-online.com. And you can reach me at my email address at amartin, that's AMARTIN, @integral-online.com.
Okay. Mr. Coleman?
And I can be reached at Morocco, like the country Africa, that's the way you spell it, MOROCCO, Morocco @bellsouth.net. And I'm also on Facebook under Morocco Coleman.
Mr. Cannon?
My email address is WSCannon1919. That's WSCANNON1919 @gmail.com.
In case you didn't get all the email addresses and the websites, if you'll call my office again at 404-330-6047, we'll have that on my Facebook page, so you can go to it very quickly and you'll be able to get in touch with everyone. And we just want to thank you for joining us and look forward to some more topics in District 4.